I've never been good at writing things down, but I don't think I'll ever sleep again unless I get this out of my head. My name is Michael Carr. I'm a paramedic, or at least I was, in the town of Wayridge, Maine, population 3,482 if you counted every lost soul who didn't move south when the mills closed. We were tucked up against the coast, far enough from the city to be forgotten, but close enough to pretend we weren't. This all started 2 weeks ago, though it feels like years now. They said it would be just a storm, but it wasn't. It was something else. Something that came with the wind and the waves, and it didn't leave when the skies cleared. The first warning came from the weather alerts. An early nor'easter, the kind that comes screaming up the coast in late fall, was forming fast. Too fast. A bomb cyclone, they called it. Rapid pressure drop, explosive development. Whatever the hell that meant, I remember thinking it sounded made up. Wayridge had seen storms before. We knew the drill. Board the windows, fill up on gas, make sure the generator worked. But this one felt different before it even hit. The pressure dropped so fast my ears popped just walking outside. Birds vanished from the trees 2 days before the first drops of rain. My neighbor's dog, a big dumb golden retriever named Captain, started howling at the sea every night like it owed him something. On the night before landfall, I was on the late shift. We were already stretched thin small town, skeleton crew. I sat in the ambulance with my partner Andy, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee and watching the wind pick up. Leaves swirled through the air like birds trying to escape. "You think it'll be a bad one?" Andy asked. He was younger than me, former Navy, still had that buzz cut and clean scrubbed look. I'd worked with him for almost a year. "I think it'll blow some roofs off and kill the power," I said. "Same as last year. People forget and panic every time." We didn't know. No one knew. The storm hit the next day around noon, and within an hour, the town was dark. The rain wasn't like normal rain. It didn't fall so much as pour sideways, driven by winds that howled like a freight train through the trees. The sky turned black by early afternoon, and the lightning came in bursts so constant the clouds seemed to glow. But it wasn't the weather that got to me. It was the sound. There was a low-frequency rumble beneath everything under the wind, under the thunder, even under the silence between gusts. It sounded like the earth was groaning, not just from pressure, from pain. At first I thought it was a hallucination, exhaustion, but Andy heard it too. So did everyone I spoke to that day. My sister Emily called from her place on the east end of town, saying her windows were vibrating, and it was like something was breathing through the pipes. Then came the outages. Power went down, then the radio towers. Cell phones died, not the usual spotty signal, they just went black. No bars, no emergency calls. Satellite dishes stopped working. Every connection cut, all at once. People started to panic. I tried to calm them. That's what you do in my line of work. You tell them it's temporary. You lie through your teeth to keep the lid on. But something deep inside me knew this wasn't temporary. And that's when the first call came in. A handwritten note slipped under the door of the firehouse where we'd moved operations. Man missing mile marker 17, coastline trail. Left to check boat before storm. Never came back. Lights in the trees. Lights. We should have ignored it. The weather alone was enough to make search and rescue impossible. But there weren't many of us left. And when someone disappears in a storm like this, every second counts. Andy volunteered to come. So did Taylor, one of the volunteer firefighters. We took the 4x4 response truck and drove as far as the downed trees and flooded road would let us, then hiked the rest of the way with headlamps and radios that barely worked. I remember the woods being silent. Not quiet silent. Like all sound had been sucked away, muffled by the pressure or the air itself. The rain came in sheets, and the trees swayed like they were alive. We found the boat on shore, or what was left of it, torn from its mooring, hull split like it had been crushed. The weird part was the sand. It was scorched, blackened, like something had burned a perfect circle into the beach. Andy found the first footprints. Bare feet, human-sized. They led from the boat up into the woods, where no one should have been barefoot in that cold. We followed them. Taylor was the first to say he saw something. A shape in the trees. Not a person taller, thinner. No flashlight, no sound. Just a silhouette. Watching us. Eyes, he muttered. They were glowing. Then he dropped his radio. When we turned to help him, he was gone. Just gone. No scream, no flash of movement. He'd been standing 10 feet from us, and then he wasn't. The only thing left was the radio, cracked and hissing static. We searched for hours, found nothing, not even a broken branch. Eventually, we had to retreat. The storm was too strong. I could barely see the trail back. Andy kept looking over his shoulder. We didn't speak all the way back to the truck. That night, things got worse. I returned to the firehouse to find a crowd gathered, locals, soaked and shivering. They'd all come with the same story. Lights in the rain. Some saw them hovering above rooftops. Others swore they saw things moving across flooded roads, tall figures walking against the wind like it wasn't even there. One old fisherman claimed his wife had vanished from their home, said she walked outside like she was sleepwalking right into the storm and never came back. They tried to follow her, but something stepped in their path. A shape. Something so dark it seemed to drink the light from their flashlights. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell them they were hysterical. But I'd seen it too. Andy sat beside me, soaked to the bone, staring at nothing. "They're not human," he whispered. "Whatever's out there, they're not human." The storm didn't pass. It stayed, anchored above Way Ridge like a weight on our chests. Day after day of howling wind and pitch-black skies. No communication, no help, no rescue. By the third day, we stopped counting the missing. They didn't vanish in groups, always one at a time. Someone would go to the bathroom and never come back. Someone would check the basement generator and disappear. We set up buddy systems, ropes between rooms. It didn't matter. The storm swallowed them whole. Emily and her son stayed with me at the firehouse. I had to promise her everything would be okay. I'm her big brother. That's my job. But even then, I knew I was lying. On the fourth night, I saw one of them up close. I had just stepped outside to check the supply cache. Wind nearly took the door off its hinges. I made it 10 feet before I froze. There was something standing in the middle of Main Street. Not walking, standing, perfectly still. It was at least 8 feet tall, humanoid in shape, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, legs slightly bent like a bird's. Its skin, if it was skin, shimmered like wet obsidian. The rain didn't touch it. It slid right off like it wasn't there. And its eyes. Jesus, its eyes were the worst part. Not glowing, reflecting, like two polished mirrors staring right through me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then it tilted its head, just slightly, and vanished. Not like it walked away, not like it ran. It simply ceased to exist. I stumbled back inside, heart in my throat, and locked the door behind me. I didn't say a word to Emily, just held my nephew tighter that night, and prayed the roof wouldn't tear off. We lost Andy on the 5th day. He said he'd heard something on the rooftop. I begged him not to go, but he looked at me with that same look Taylor had, the one that said, "I have to see it." He climbed the stairs. I never saw him again, but I did hear him scream, not a scream of pain, a scream of understanding, like he'd seen something so vast, so beyond comprehension, that it broke his mind in a single moment. Then silence. Always the silence. I'm writing this from what's left of the firehouse. Half the roof is gone. Emily and the kid are asleep, or unconscious. I don't know anymore. The storm is still here, but I think it's almost over. Not because it's letting up, because whatever came with it has found what it was looking for. And I think it's coming for me next. But I won't run. I won't give it the satisfaction. Let it come. Let it show me the truth. Let me see the thing behind the curtain. Because if I survive, the world has to know. I didn't sleep after I finished writing that first part. Not that night. Not since. Sleep feels like a luxury, now a dangerous one. You close your eyes too long, and you might not wake up. Or worse, you'll wake up and everything will be different again. Like something rewrote the world while you weren't looking. That night after Andy vanished, I sat up with a flashlight and the last cup of coffee I could find. Rain still battered the roof. The walls trembled with every gust. But inside me a deeper unease had taken hold. I wasn't just afraid of the storm anymore. I was afraid of what it had brought with it. At 3:12 a.m., Emily came into the room holding her son, Liam, tight against her chest. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even blinking. "He says someone was knocking on the window," she whispered. We were on the 2nd floor. By the 6th day, most of the town had either vanished or gone completely insane. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean people started babbling in tongues, scratching symbols into walls, tearing their own clothes off and walking straight into the sea. Some stared into the storm like it was God. Something in the storm was changing them. Something intelligent. We tried to leave that morning. Me, Emily, Liam, and 2 survivors from the diner across the street, Marcus and June. They were just regular people, a couple in their 60s who'd barricaded the restaurant and weathered the first few days with canned soup and denial. The road was flooded, of course. Trees snapped and piled like bones. But we had the ambulance, and I'd jerry-rigged a snorkel onto the air intake the day before. I figured if we stuck close to the coast, maybe we could find a path out, or at least make it to the ranger station north of the harbor. We got 3 blocks before we saw it again. Standing in the middle of the street, blocking the way, one of them. Same shape, same height, same eyes. This time it wasn't alone. Another stepped from the alley, then another from the fog. 4, 5, 7, all of them watching, none of them moving. Emily started crying softly in the back seat. Liam pressed his face into her jacket. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles cracked. Marcus muttered prayers. June pulled a kitchen knife from her coat like that would do anything. And then they all turned and walked away. Not fast, not like they were chasing. Just slowly, deliberately, back into the mist, like they were leading us. "Follow them," June said suddenly. "No," I told her. "Absolutely not." "They want us to," she insisted. "They're showing us the way out." But her voice wasn't right. It was too calm, too trusting. She opened her door before I could stop her and stepped out into the rain. By the time Marcus grabbed her arm, she was already smiling. Then they were both walking away, into the fog, Gone. We reversed course. I took a turn too hard and nearly hit a fire hydrant. The rear wheels caught mud, and we skidded into the side of a building, a bookstore I used to visit when I was a kid. Emily screamed. Liam finally cried. We couldn't stay in the ambulance after that, so we broke into the bookstore, lit candles, waited. That's when I found the journal. Not mine, someone else's. It was on the counter, tucked beneath a copy of Moby Dick. Bound in leather, soaked through, but the ink inside had held. Dozens of pages, handwritten. I recognized the name scrawled across the first page. Henry Mallory, the local historian, retired professor. Used to lecture about maritime lore and pre-Columbian anomalies. Most folks thought he was harmless, eccentric. His first entry was dated 6 months before the storm. I don't know who will read this. Maybe no one. But if what I suspect is true, there won't be many of us left to explain. Something is coming. I've seen the signs, heard the echoes in the surf. The old stories were true, the ones about the drowned gods, the watchers beneath the sea. They're waking up. I read every page that night by candlelight, heart pounding with every paragraph. He'd seen it first in the tide's irregular swells that didn't match any storm pattern, then in the birds' entire flocks flying inland, days before the weather changed. Then the symbols, carved into the rocks near Black Gull Point. Not modern graffiti, not even native, older, far older, circles within circles, starbursts, human shapes with no faces. He traced them to petroglyphs in Newfoundland, and older ones still, submerged under the waters off Doggerland. Patterns that appeared across continents, separated by oceans and centuries. They all reference the same event, a storm that comes without warning, a flood of wind and darkness, and beings who ride the rain like vessels. His last entry stopped mid-sentence. I saw them tonight, in the fog, watching from the tree line. I think they know that was it. Ink trailing off the page. A smear of something reddish-brown. On the 7th day, the storm changed. It wasn't just a hurricane anymore. It wasn't even weather. The clouds above Wayridge pulsed with light. Not lightning, but something deeper. Like veins glowing inside a massive beating heart. The air buzzed. My skin itched constantly. The sound that had haunted me, the deep, subsonic hum, became louder, more rhythmic. Emily didn't want to move again. She was curled up in a sleeping bag with Liam, whispering lullabies that didn't rhyme. I knew we couldn't stay there, so I went back out, alone. I took the only working flashlight and wrapped a scarf around my face. The rain stung now, like static. It left welts where it touched skin. The street was littered with debris, abandoned cars, upturned trash bins, windows shattered. But the town was still quiet. Too quiet. I made my way east, toward the coast, toward Black Gull Point. I needed to see those symbols, and I needed to know if Henry Mallory was right. The shoreline was almost unrecognizable. Erosion had chewed away entire sections of land. Boats were stranded on rooftops. Sand covered the road like ash, but the rocks were still there, the ones near the old lighthouse. I found the carvings. They were worse than I imagined. Grooves too deep, too precise to be natural. Circles inside spirals. Human-like figures with holes for faces, some with tentacles, others with wings. I ran my hand over one and felt warmth. The stone was warm. Then I heard it, a voice, not spoken, inside me, like an idea that wasn't mine. We came before. I stumbled back, nearly dropped the flashlight. Fog rolled in from the ocean, thick, dense. I saw shapes in it again, moving, dozens, no hundreds, all walking toward the town. And in the center of them, something massive, taller than the lighthouse, covered in glistening skin, its body pulsated with dim light. Not eyes organs, or sacs, or something else entirely. I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop until I reached the bookstore again. Emily was waiting. So was Liam. He was different. His eyes were wide, glassy, his skin pale, his breath slow. He spoke to me, Emily said. What? In his sleep. He said it's not a storm. It's a return. I stared at her. And then he said, they're going to take the sea back, and what was under it. I didn't know what to say, but I believed her. That night, they came into the town in force. Not just shadows anymore. Physical, real, touching things, tearing down doors, ripping apart metal, tearing up the asphalt like it was paper. I saw them from the roof. They moved like liquid, fast and slow at the same time. They surrounded the town hall, the school, the church, one by one. Every building, except ours, except the bookstore. They never came closer than the street. I think the symbols protected us. For now. It's day 8 now. The rain has slowed. The wind is still howling. But there's a clarity in the air that wasn't there before. I think whatever they were doing, whatever they were looking for, they're done now. I asked Emily if she wanted to try again. Try to run. She said no. She said, we have to remember, even if no one else does. So I'm writing it all down. Everything I can remember. Every horror. Every sound. Every impossible truth. Because this was never just about Wayridge. This was never just a storm. They came with the water, and they're not leaving. They're spreading. It's hard to explain how the world feels when you realize it's no longer ours. The storm is still here. That hasn't changed, but the town has. Wayridge used to be full of sound, laughter, traffic, music, sirens. Now it's the silence that suffocates you. Silence between the bursts of shrieking wind. Silence between the footsteps outside. When the shadows pass and pause listening. They're still here, watching us, waiting. We haven't left the bookstore since that night. It's the only place we've felt safe. I don't know if it's the symbols on the rocks or something Henry Mallory did before he vanished. But they haven't touched this building. Not once. Liam hasn't spoken since that night either. Not in English. Not in anything we understand. But every now and then he hums the same 3-note tune, over and over, like a lullaby, like a signal. Emily says it's okay. I'm not so sure. I found another journal yesterday. Not Henry's. This one was buried behind the counter. Moldy, pages curled, but still legible. It belonged to a woman named Mira Sloan, a marine biologist. Apparently, she'd come to Wayridge to study something unusual offshore, a pattern of undersea seismic activity that didn't match any tectonic fault line. She called it the heartbeat. Every 11 days, a rhythmic pulse not violent enough to cause quakes, but strong enough to be detected by sonar buoys across the continental shelf. She tracked it here, just off the coast. The last entry is dated 2 weeks before the storm hit. It's not a geological event. I've ruled that out. The signal's too regular, too intentional. It feels like a message, a calling. I'm going to dive tomorrow. I need to know what's beneath the shelf. There are no other entries after that. On the 9th day, the storm shifted. Not the weather, the pattern. Until then, it had been like a siege. No breaks, just constant howling wind and the presence of those things outside. But that morning, just before dawn, the clouds thinned. For 5 full minutes, the rain stopped. Sunlight touched the water. And I swear I saw something swimming below the surface. Not fish, not whales, something massive. And I saw buildings too. Structures, towers, domes. Like a city had risen just beneath the waves. Then the clouds came back. And it was gone. We heard the broadcast later that day. A single voice crackling through the static on the old radio behind the counter. To anyone still alive, this is Outpost Echo. Repeat, this is Outpost Echo, located northwest of Wayridge on Route 17 past the washed-out bridge. We have food, shelter, and survivors. If you can hear this, you're not alone. Don't trust the fog. Don't trust their voices. Move only during the breaks. We're holding as long as we can. Then it looped. Emily started crying again. Liam didn't even blink. We waited for the next break in the storm. It came the following day, day 10. Just after 4 p.m., the sky lightened, and the rain thinned to mist. The humming stopped. The air felt breathable again. We grabbed what we could. Flashlights, batteries, food, maps. I took Henry's journal. Emily clutched Liam like a lifeline. We left the bookstore behind. The town was a graveyard. No people, no animals, just ruins, twisted metal, water-stained walls, and signs, handwritten ones, nailed to doors and trees. They speak in your voice. If you answer, you're theirs. Only the dumb survive. Don't look at their eyes. I kept my head down. We passed the diner, the library, the old train depot. Everything covered in algae now, as if the ocean had taken a breath inland and left rot behind. Then, at the far end of town, we saw the church, or what was left of it. Its steeple had collapsed, the bell tower burned black, and in the yard, the ground had split open like a sinkhole, but too perfect, too round. I looked inside, and I saw stairs, stone steps spiraling down into the dark. Emily begged me to keep walking. I wanted to, but something called, not with a voice, not like the others. Just a feeling, a pull, like gravity but emotional, ancient. I almost followed it, but then Liam looked at me, and I stopped. We kept walking. The bridge was gone. Not damaged, erased. Nothing but twisted rebar and shattered concrete pointing into the void. Below it, the valley flooded with black water. Trees jutted out like fingers. Route 17 was impassable, but there was another way. I remembered an old ranger trail cutting up the ridge, a firebreak path used by ATV patrols. It was steep, overgrown, and probably dangerous as hell in the wet, but we didn't have a choice. We climbed. It took hours. Mud slid beneath our boots. Branches clawed at our faces. But we climbed, higher and higher, until the town was a smear below us, and the ocean was a molten eye on the horizon. That's when we heard it again. The song, Liam's lullaby, echoing from the trees, not his voice. Hundreds, thousands, all humming in unison. The fog thickened. Shadows moved between the trunks. We ran. We reached a clearing just before nightfall. And there it was, a wall of shipping containers stacked into a makeshift barricade. Floodlights, antennas, a gate welded from rusted cars and road signs, and above it all, a red-painted sign, Outpost Echo. 2 men stepped out, rifles raised. Both looked like they hadn't slept in days. One wore a ranger's coat. The other had a scar down his cheek. They didn't ask our names. They didn't even ask what we saw. They just pulled us in and slammed the gate behind us. And for the first time in 10 days, I felt almost safe. almost. The outpost was built on the remains of an old rest stop, the kind that used to have vending machines and pamphlets about local wildlife. Now, it had cots, a generator, and 36 other survivors. Some were from Weyridge. Others came from as far as Bangor. All of them had seen the things. All of them had lost someone. The man with the scar was named Cole. He ran the place. Ex-Navy, no nonsense. He didn't care about manners. He cared about staying alive. The fog's not just weather, he told us that first night. It's their medium, like water to fish. The deeper in you go, the more you change. That's why we stay high. The signal's weaker up here. What are they? I asked. He stared at me for a long time before answering. I don't think they're new. Emily helped in the infirmary. I helped with watch. Liam. He didn't sleep. He just sat in a corner, staring at the wall. Humming. Always humming. After the second day, some of the others started humming too. At first we thought they were just coping. Then one of them walked into the fog. Didn't say a word. Didn't come back. Cole had a theory. They're not invaders, he said. They're returning. Maybe they were always here, beneath the sea, waiting for us to fall asleep long enough for them to climb back out. Return to what? I asked. He shrugged. Home. I read the rest of Henry's journal by flashlight in a supply closet. There were entries near the back I hadn't seen before. Faded, scratched in with what looked like charcoal. The city beneath the waves is real. The ancients called it the throat of the world. Not metaphorical, a literal opening, a mouth to something older. The gods we speak of are not creators. They are memory. The storm is their consciousness. Their language is vibration. They ride the fog like neurons ride the brain. We are just interference. The last page was a drawing, a spiral within a spiral. Around it, 5 symbols. One looked like a wave, one like a star, one like a tree, one like a human eye. And the last was a mouth, open, waiting. On the 13th night, something happened at the edge of the outpost. A light appeared in the trees. Not a flashlight, not a flare, just a single hovering orb of pale blue, bobbing in place like a lantern. Then another, and another. Dozens. They formed a line around the camp, perfectly spaced, and behind them, the fog thickened. That's when we heard the voice. It came from every speaker, every radio, every loose wire. It wasn't words. It was emotion, grief, longing, hunger. Liam stood up and walked to the fence. Emily screamed. He turned and looked at us. And for just a second, his eyes weren't his. They were mirrors, reflecting something I still can't describe. Then he collapsed. He's still breathing, still humming. But his hum matches the lights now, flickering in rhythm. Cole wants to take him outside. He thinks Liam is a conduit. He thinks the boy is how they're learning. I won't let him. Whatever this is, whatever they want, it's not over. Not yet. And if Liam really is their bridge, then maybe he's also our chance to understand, to stop them, or to warn the next town. Because the storm's moving inland now. The pressure's dropping, and the signal's getting stronger. I can't sleep anymore. Even when I close my eyes, I feel it, that low, bone-deep vibration under the earth, like some massive engine turning in the dark. The others feel it too. The air inside the outpost is heavy now, humid and static-charged, like the sky before a tornado. Even when the fog clears for a few hours, the storm remains. We stopped calling it weather. It's something else, something alive. Cole finally tried to move Liam. He didn't ask. He just waited until Emily and I were asleep, then dragged the boy out toward the perimeter fence, claiming he was going to test the influence range. We caught him just as he reached the outer posts, where the humming lights still floated like sentinels. I tackled him to the ground. He drew a knife. Emily screamed. Liam never flinched. And the moment Cole touched the boundary, the lights flared bright white and the humming became a scream. Not sound, not from mouths. It was inside us, behind the eyes, in the teeth, a twisting metal wail that made every nerve feel like fire. Cole staggered backward, bleeding from his nose, his ears. He's been catatonic since. Some part of him stayed out there. 2 nights later, the fog spoke again. But this time, not in static, not in pulses. It used voices, our own. They came from just outside the walls, familiar, desperate, pleading. A woman cried for her son. A boy begged his father to open the gate. A man shouted that the rescue team had arrived. Every voice was perfect, mimicked. Pitch, cadence, emotion all stolen. But none of the people they copied were alive anymore. We knew that. Still, some survivors stood too close to the fence. One of them, Marcus, a truck driver from Freeport, called back. His voice broke with hope. And that was it. The lights pulsed once. The fog surged. And Marcus was gone. No sound, no body, just gone. As if he'd never existed. The survivors began to splinter after that. Some retreated into the outpost's inner buildings, refusing to go near the windows. Others took to pacing the perimeter with weapons drawn, whispering to themselves in a dozen strange languages. None of us had ever heard those tongues before. Not Earth languages, something older. Some of them weren't sleeping. Some had stopped blinking. One man gouged out his own eyes with a screwdriver. Another tried to eat dirt. I kept Liam close. He still hums. Always the same notes. But now, when he sleeps, he smiles. And that's what terrifies me most. On the 17th day, Emily and I decided to leave. Not because we thought the outpost was doomed. Because we knew it. Cole still hadn't spoken. 1/3 of the survivors were gone or mad. The fog had changed color deeper now, tinged with red, like rust in water. Liam began whispering things in his sleep. Not words we knew, but I wrote them down. And when I cross-referenced them with Henry's journal and Mira's field notes, something clicked. A pattern. Coordinates. Not geographical. Not quite. But if you layered them over the town's original ley line mapping, an old practice used by spiritualists in the 1800s, they matched. They formed a shape. A circle. Centered on the church. The sinkhole. That spiral of stairs. It wasn't just a cave. It was the keyhole. We had to go back. Leaving the outpost wasn't hard. Nobody stopped us. Most didn't even notice we were gone. The path down the ridge was quiet, eerily so. No voices, no lights. Even the wind seemed afraid to speak. Wayridge was worse than before. Collapsed. Softened. Like the land had sunk, subtly, as if the soil itself was no longer stable. Roads tilted. Houses slumped. The ground sagged like rotted meat. But the fog, it parted for us. It opened a path. Straight to the church. As if it had been waiting. The hole was still there. Wider now. The edges cracked and lined with glyphs glowing faintly. Blue-green like bioluminescent algae. The stairs spiraled into black. We descended. I don't remember how long it took. Hours. Maybe days. There was no sense of time down there. Only vibration. And heat. And the sense that something immense was breathing below. At the bottom, we found the city. Not ruins. Not remnants. A city alive. Organic. Pulsing. Built of stone and coral and sinew. The architecture defied geometry angles that bent reality, walls that breathed, doorways that led to sky and back again. In its center stood the temple, a spire of bone and basalt, spiraling up into nothingness. And in front of it, a pool, dark as oil, still. Liam walked straight to it. Didn't hesitate, didn't wait. Emily tried to stop him, but I held her back. He stepped into the water and vanished. Emily collapsed, sobbing, screaming. I held her until my arms gave out. We should have gone after him. We didn't, because the moment he disappeared, the pool began to glow. And above us, high above, beyond the temple, the sky tore open. Not our sky, not Earth's, another. A veil pulling back to reveal stars that didn't belong. Constellations I couldn't name. Colors the human eye isn't built to perceive. And something moved between them. Slowly, massively, like a god waking up. Or a machine. A mind made of galaxies. I knew, in that moment, that Liam was part of it now. He wasn't stolen. He was chosen. We ran. Back up the stairs. Back through the fog. Back to the world that no longer felt like ours. But something followed us. Not a creature. A change. The air shifted. The soil pulsed. The very language of reality began to rewrite itself subtly, but surely. We weren't just witnessing a breach. We were inside a transformation, a metamorphosis of Earth. The storm broke the next day. Literally. The clouds peeled open like skin, and a column of light descended onto Wayridge. Not sunlight. Not divine. A signal. A data stream of frequencies and emotion, pouring into the church ruins like a needle injecting code into the world. And with it came the figures. Hundreds. Tall, luminous, veined with light. Humanoid, but not. They stepped from the sea, from the sky, from the walls of reality itself. Some we could see. Some we couldn't, only their shadows. They walked through town without looking at us, because we were irrelevant. I think that's what breaks most people. Not the horror. The insignificance. We're not under attack. We're not being hunted. We're just ants on a keyboard someone's typing through. Emily stopped speaking entirely after that. I still catch her whispering Liam's name when she thinks I'm asleep. Sometimes, I whisper it too. 3 days later, a voice returned on the radio. Same static, same channel. But this time it was Liam. "Hello," he said. "I'm okay. It's not what you think. It never was. They needed someone who could listen." A pause. Then, "You still have time." That was it. It's never repeated. The outpost is gone now. Evaporated in the light storm. The survivors scattered. Some walked into the fog willingly. Some disappeared in their sleep. Cole never woke up. I buried him under a tree that grew overnight. Its leaves sing. Always the same 3 notes. I've decided to stay. Wayridge is not empty anymore. It's becoming something else. And I think the world is too. The others might try to run, try to hide. But you can't hide from evolution, from awakening. You can only listen. And maybe hum along. There's no town anymore, no Wayridge. What's left isn't ruin. It's becoming. I don't know how else to explain it. The streets are still here, but they twist where they shouldn't. Trees bloom from rooftops and shimmer with skin-like bark. The ocean encroaches daily, but it doesn't flood, it climbs like it's learning to stand. Sometimes I see buildings breathe. Sometimes I hear the sky whisper, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, I hear Liam's voice in the leaves. He's not dead. He's not even gone. He's part of this. Emily left 5 days ago. She didn't say where she was going, just packed what little she still carried, kissed my forehead, and said, "I need to find him. Not for answers, just to see." I wanted to stop her, but I knew I couldn't. She disappeared into the mist that hasn't lifted since the storm cracked open. I haven't seen her since. Sometimes I dream of her standing on the steps of that impossible temple, the sky blooming above her like an alien flower, smiling. I hope she found peace. I started recording again. Not for the others, they're gone. But for anyone who finds this. If you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't understand. That we thought we were alone. That we mistook curiosity for malice. They didn't come to destroy. They came to wake us up. But not everyone survives awakening. The spiral staircase under the church still exists, though the church above it has collapsed into coral and blackened glass. I go down every day now. I don't know why. It calls to me. The pool at the bottom no longer glows, but I know it's not empty. Not really. I feel it watching, listening, waiting. Sometimes it shows me things. Not visions, not dreams, truths. Not from here. Other worlds, other storms, other species who heard the song and changed. Some resisted, some transcended. We still have a choice, but not for long. Last night, I saw a new shape in the fog. It wasn't humanoid. It moved like sound, rippling, shifting, slow, and behind it trailed dozens of footprints, perfect human footprints, but they never touched the ground. The figure stopped outside my shelter. Didn't speak, didn't move, but I heard it inside my chest, like a memory I hadn't made yet, like a prayer I didn't know I was whispering. "You're close," it said, and then it was gone. I haven't seen the stars in weeks, but sometimes I dream of them, and they look wrong. Not chaotic, just rearranged. Rewritten. As if someone has been changing the sky's code one line at a time, reprogramming our reality from the top down. And I think Liam is helping them do it. I think that's why they chose him. The journal entries Henry left behind, the ones the university ignored, spoke of a veiled epoch, a time before human memory, when Earth was a nursery. Not for life, for meaning. A place where ideas became flesh, where emotion had mass, where thought itself altered the shape of existence. He believed something had locked that power away, buried it, chained it. And this storm was the key returning. Not an invader, a jailer coming undone. The lights are back tonight, floating above the trees. Only now, there are more of them, thousands maybe, like stars torn from the sky and set adrift in the forest canopy. They pulse with rhythm, with music, and in the silence between their tones, I can feel language forming. Not English, not any tongue I've ever known, but I understand it anyway. It's telling me a story. Ours. The first flood hit yesterday, not from the sea, from beneath. Black water, thick with silt, and strange shapes, not fish, not eels, limbs like vines, eyes like lanterns, moving in unison. They didn't attack. They just watched. And when the water receded, the town was changed again. Windows gone, doors reversed, mirrors that showed other people. In one of them, I saw Liam as an adult, tall, smiling, wearing clothes made of light, and behind him stood thousands more. Not human, not alien, both. I believe we're being rewritten, not by force, by invitation. It's why the voices outside the outpost mimicked our loved ones, why the fog doesn't always attack, why it sometimes opens. They're waiting to see who's ready, who's willing, not to serve, but to join, to become something beyond what we've known. I've stopped eating, stopped sleeping, but I don't feel weak. I feel lighter, like gravity doesn't pull me the same way anymore. My skin itches sometimes, especially around the bones. Emily said she felt it too before she left, like her shape wasn't the final one. She said, "What if our forms were never finished? Just paused, waiting to complete?" I laughed then. I don't laugh now, because I'm changing too. I wrote a message in the sand today. Just one word. Listen. The tide didn't wash it away. Instead, it left another beside it. Awake. The pool at the bottom of the temple is full again, but not with water. It's filled with stars. Reflected? No. Real. Moving. Twinkling. And when I look into it, I see them, the ones who came with the storm. Not monsters, not angels, just us. Further down the path. They wave. And I finally understand what Liam meant. This was never a rescue. It was a return. I'm going now. Not out of fear. Not even curiosity. Just readiness. I've recorded everything I can. I've left maps not of roads, but of changes. The way the trees tilt when they're listening. The patterns the lights make when they speak. The names the fog gave back to us. Hidden in the wind. If you find this, you haven't missed it. It's still coming. It never stopped. It just waits. For you. The final note in Liam's journal was scrawled in a hand I barely recognized. Mine. It said, "We are not the end of the story. We are the beginning that forgot how it started." I'm stepping into the pool now. The water is warm. No, not water. Memory. Liquid memory. It pulls gently, like gravity tuned to love. I'm not afraid. I see them waiting. Liam, Emily, Cole. Even the ones we lost long before Wayridge. I understand now. They didn't die. They arrived. Transmission ends. Signal complete. Stormfront status. Integration phase achieved. Awaiting next node awakening.